Okay everyone, so now let's go and just have a quick review of the JS section of Laravel. We know that the one that we installed when we run the UI authentication, if we go back here, we run this command UI, we installed Vue or Vue.js in our case. So you would see here that we do have a Vue component .vue file here. And if we go and try to again go to the app.js, here we do have a Vue component, and again we can maximize the use of React also instead of using Vue if you're more comfortable with Vue. That's just something to take note of here. And you would see here we have some default value from where we have the window.vue here, and it's requiring Vue as a default value for our project here. And Laravel is a combination of front-end frameworks and back-end frameworks. That's a good thing about it. We can also implement Bootstrap here if you're familiar with Bootstrap. So when we tried to create this application, again, we did have the npm package manager, and we used that for us to be able to work with JavaScript packages when we run npm, and that just means node package manager. If you're totally new with web development, you may have heard of the term front end. That will be usually in relation to HTML, JavaScript, especially for on the client side. If you're going to be making some elements dynamic, you would usually use JavaScript. And then in Laravel, in this case, we also used PHP on top of the front end features of the Laravel framework here. So it's a mix of technologies. So when we talk about front end, that is just pertaining to everything that we get to be able to communicate with in our application here, especially the ones that we see on our browser. On the back end, on the other hand, that will be something that we are getting from the server. For example, the one that we have here in Tinker, we have a back end from where this is not going to be easily viewable by the user, because the information is mostly on the server side. So you might hear front end, back end, those are job roles that you might find, and if you are familiar with both, you can be considered as a full stack web developer. So Vue here, you can also maximize the use of, besides from Vue, you can implement here other technologies like jQuery if you're more familiar with jQuery library or the jQuery library. And if we try to look at the components here, we do have here an example component, and we do have the app.play.php here from where we have the doc type, and we did comment out the brand name Laravel here. If you remember, if we try to uncomment this, that will be the config that we tried to edit on our .env file. We go back here, so you would see we now have that RBSL photogram on our brand name here. Okay, so that's just something to take note of, and we are actually setting that up here from the layouts.app, which is this app.blade.php. We are able to get Laravel here is smart enough to know that we are fetching that layouts.app here. It's like if you're templating in PHP, normally we use the include method, right? If we are working with PHP in pure PHP, in a sense, if you're familiar with PHP templating concepts. And again, some additional information that should be very clear is node and npm. So we do have here node-v and npm-v. Am I correct? So if those are already in your project here, we're good to go. We can try to start working with our project. And we also do have, again, I think I forgot to mention the npm run dev here, especially if we're making some changes. This is going to be important, especially if we want to run Webpack. And Webpack is just a free and open source module bundler for JavaScript. So you would see here, it's a module bundler, especially if you're working with Laravel 8. If you're working with Laravel 9, you would probably encounter the Vite Laravel 9 here. It's a front-end tooling, get ready for a development environment that can finally catch up with you. Okay, so this is another thing to take note of if you're using Vite. And it's allowing us to set up an environment for frameworks like Vue, React, and so on, and even vanilla JavaScript. So some other things that we should be aware of in our directories here, we have the components, we have SAST here, we can maximize the use of variables. As we can see here, I believe I've shown you how this is done, and we can even choose our font specific for our application here. So let's try to go get a different font besides from Nunito here. Let's just go and let's say Google Fonts, and I'm going to use a different font. I want to use Open Sans. So let's see, Roboto. I don't want that. I don't want that. Let's go for Open Sans as our font. And instead of just having one single font size or font weight, I would want to have this regular for 100 and this 700 here. And I'm going to, instead of using this, I'm going to Control C this. I'm going to replace that with an import. So we can choose here. Where's that import option? We do have here an import option. So let's just go get that. Go back here. Import that, and of course we will need to go to our, I think, variables. We have that font family, variables SCSS, so we'll need to also get that from our font family here. And just going to go and copy this font family, sans serif, and that's supposedly this should be working. So let's try to see what that will be producing for us. So that didn't seem to do anything. Okay, do we need to go and let's try to run. Let's first save this. npm run dev to compile most of the changes that we've done. Let's just wait for this to finish. Okay, I think that finished our import. As you can see, it's successfully compiled our app.js file here and our css app.css. Okay, so those are what got compiled here. Webpack compiled it successfully, and hopefully we were able to implement that font weight 400 700 now, rather than just having a single font weight and us using Nunito. Let's try to see what that will be doing for our project here. I think that's not that much of a change here. Let's double check if what will happen if we try to. Sometimes this is what I normally do, because sometimes even if you try to make some changes and you try to run npm run dev, there might be something happening that might not be working correctly. So I would usually try to restart the server. Let's just try to first check if okay, so it's good. Can we try to now replace our font weight? Can we do that? Let's see in our public. Do have some changes here. So you would see it's getting compiled, and this is normally something that you won't need to work on, or you won't need to be touching anymore unless you want to really make your life quite complicated. But technically that's the reason why you have SAST here. You can implement your CSS implementation. As you can see, we can nest our CSS code blocks inside of some of our CSS tier that is being compiled because of having our app.scss tier. Okay, so this is like you having a bootstrap directory from where you have that scss bootstrap installed, and we're importing bootstrap also in Laravel. So it's a really mixture of technologies that we can try to use when we are working with Laravel here. So I think those are the changes that we've done. Let's try to commit this. We did some changes here in our we did uncomment our brand name here. Let's commit this as a change. So I'll just go back here, going to commit this, git add all, git commit -m, replaced or add Google font open sans. Going to push this. Some other things that you need to be aware of, especially if you're working with a collaborative environment, you might need to go and try to familiarize yourself practicing together with a teammate. If you're going to be working together with a teammate, that's one of the things, because there will be a lot of setup that you will need to do when you try to clone the repository from you're working with. So perhaps I can try to run you through on how to do that also as we move forward with some of the things that we would want to implement in our application here. And I think we need to also replace this. That's perhaps the reason why it's not working. Let's see, there's this font CSS family Nonito. We can try to, I think we'll need to get back to our Google font here. Just for Google fonts knowledge, and let's just see if we need to also get this open sans here. But I think we already did an import, but just to be sure, because we have that font Nonito here in our app.play.php, you might need to go and also have the API for Google font here. So let's see what will that be doing in our project now. So it's still the same. I think we're good with this for the meantime, but at least we were able to import. We can try to test out the font weight, but perhaps some other time.